Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about a stock that Roy and I have been talking about for 3 years that Tanner decided to just never pay attention to for some reason.
I was a shareholder and then sold.
Sellout.
Just saying, you chose not to worry about it. But look, Palantir obviously had an incredible earnings today. There are some odd peculiarities. I knew I was going to mess up this word. How do you say the peculiarities? How do you say it? It's a word, right?
Peculiarities.
Say it again.
Peculiarities.
Peculiarity. I can't say this word. Hold on. Say it again. Say it again. Say it again.
Peculiarities.
Peculiarities. There are some. This is so embarrassing. There were some odd peculiar. Yep. There were some odd things. There were some odd things between Palantir and Hood that we want to discuss right now. First of all, look at this chart. This chart is a chart that I've been seeing on Twitter for the past couple of weeks now, which implies that Hood's going to do a Palantir, which go from 40 to 80. It seems very possible that this can happen. And then Roy found this today, which I didn't even think of for the past couple of weeks. Palantir's rule of 40 is 81%. Hood's rule of 40 is 75%, which is exceptional.
Yeah, half of that equation is year-over-year total net revenue growth. Yeah, they're gonna look pretty good this quarter.
Yeah.
So here's the question. I'll start with you, Roy. Can Hood pull a Palantir this year?
Yes, I mean they did last year. Like before Palantir earnings, the stock had outperformed Palantir on a 1-year basis, which is shocking because Palantir was the top performer out of the entire S&P 500. We'll maybe get into like some of the similarities between the companies because there's a lot. It's one of the reasons why I'm heavy into Robinhood and very heavy into Palantir. But I think one of those is like Palantir. It's not like the bull case of Robinhood. Don't take it that way. But they're going to get in the S&P 500 this year. Like I have a hard time not seeing that. There's a lot of other companies that I'm interested in and some that I'm holding that I think will in the future. But like Robinhood's happening this year. It may even happen, this next time. Their execution is phenomenal. Well, the one thing that the Palantir earnings told me too. So we had the SARS hit that really impacted their net income for the quarter. So if you look at that, you're like, wow, Palantir earnings sucked. Well, no, they didn't. And this was basically stock grants that were given to employees. Well-deserved. Stock ran really, really high, and it was based on the stock performance. And so that measure of SARS really hit. And as a result, their EPS on the GAAP basis was much lower than you would typically expect for Palantir. The market didn't freaking care. It was like, okay, whatever. We don't care about any of that. Look at this revenue growth. Look at this execution. Look at this story, because I think it's trading not on fundamentals, but a narrative, certainly. Robinhood has received the institution's attention. Unlike Palantir, it is not heavily owned by retail. It's very much an institutional stock. But I mean, we saw it there at Investor Day. They see this. They see the opportunity. They see what the company is doing, and they want more and more and more of it, much like Palantir. And so I think that we'll continue to see a lot of institutional buying. It's still very volatile, but as long as the crypto boom is intact, as long as the bull market is intact, like we're getting a crash every week, that's fantastic for Robinhood. Crash and recovery, oh man, like that. I bet Vlad would love to have that every day. It's like, okay, this is awesome.
Well, he did say last Sunday was their second largest overnight session ever, right?
Oh yeah,
and I bet today was great too.
Last night.
Yeah, they're just like almost everything is working perfectly, like even in the macro for Robinhood. And of course, we know the numbers are going to put up. They won't do guidance, but we'll get January's numbers soon after. I do think that there's an opportunity for much more coming for Robinhood. People were asking me, like when I was buying it, I sold all my options, bought stocks. I don't have any options in Robinhood right now. And because I initially saw it as cyclical, and I've been buying it every single week. It's my only stock that I'm DCAing in every single week. Today, the only stock that I bought, Robinhood.
You're buying in the 50s. You're normalizing that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
And we'll probably fall back in the 40s, at some point. But that's a beautiful thing about DCAs. I don't have to worry about where the stock is. I'm just like, I'm going to buy this money that I set aside, put that in Robinhood every single week, until I get the share count that I want. But I feel like, and people are like, oh man, you're buying like way too high. It was in the 30s not that long. True. That's all very true. But I think that we're going to continue to go up quite a bit more. It wouldn't shock me to see $80 by the end of the year.
I mean, it depends on the level of growth, right? And Robinhood's growth is just blown away everyone's expectations. And to add to what Roy was saying, though, I don't actually think that Robinhood is going to have a Palantir moment, going back to the original question. The reason is that I think that although Robinhood's growth, and I'm talking to two Palantir guys, and I'm not being anti-Palantir at all, but Palantir's growth has been much more fundamentally driven. They have, doubled year over year. We're not talking 30% here. We're talking 100%. But I think that the underlying business is much more stable at Palantir.
Yeah.
The macro can go up or down, and it's really not going to affect their business. They've got government contracts. Those companies are still going to need Palantir regardless, but traders may not need Robinhood. If the market goes down, they may just exit. Now, I don't mean take it to another brokerage, but they don't have to play. And so investors know that. And I don't think that we're going to see that level of a rise just because people know how unstable Robinhood's growth rates can be.
Well, Tanner, to push back there for a little bit, why do you think we went from 38 to 53 in the past month?
More growth, lots of crypto, and it actually sustaining and not.
So if that continues, why wouldn't that result in something like a Palantir moment?
I mean, it can, but markets would have to just obviously there can be a Palantir moment, but it's going to be fundamentally driven. I don't think that they're going to see a margin expansion that gets crazy.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't think that they're going to see that unbelievable price to sales that other companies can have just based on a story.
Right.
Yeah. In Robinhood, it's an amazing company. It's excellent. Palantir, I view that, and admit, call me out here if I'm wrong, but I view it as an absolute unicorn, that there are no companies that can do what Palantir does. They just can't. Robinhood, there are other companies that can do what Robinhood does. I don't think as well. I don't think that the execution, the culture, the vision is there, but they can. They have, so there's more competition. It's not going to, I think one of those things is part of what's happening with Palantir is, if somebody wants exposure to a pure AI play and they're like, well, hyperscalers already in that large cap tech, great. Then you got Palantir and nothing. Yeah, there are like Tempest AI and different AI plays, but yeah, Palantir is just, it's very uniquely positioned. And if you want exposure, you own Palantir.
Yeah, and Palantir also has a story, right? Like Hood has a great story, but Palantir's story in the AI thematic is just such a unicorn story that, as you said, a lot of people obviously are investing for that story. Even big money's investing for that story. Big money has been investing in Hood, and they get the numbers 2 out of every 3 months, so they kind of know what it's like,
Yeah.
And one thing that will really impact that growth and also the narrative for Robinhood is when the UK actually becomes real as far as for Robinhood. They don't have options yet. They don't have SIPs. They don't have ISAs. And with those 3 products, when they launch them, I don't know if they'll probably SIPs and ISAs at the same time. Options.
I think ISAs are there now.
Yeah,
no?
ISAs are there.
ISAs are there. Okay, great. I meant to miss that.
They have margin and ISAs, but we don't have options yet.
Okay, and SIPs are not as big of a deal. ISAs are a big deal. But I'm very, very curious to hear, when they expect that those might come, and they may not know, so that's fine. But if they do know, it'd be great to hear like, hey, in Q2, there we go. But I think that we're going to see a lot of growth from that. And also don't forget the what we talked about last week, which is, the acquisitions that they're doing. One of those Bitstamp on the institutional side, if and when the SEC really does, or when all the regulatory tape is cleared and banks can actually offer crypto, I think Robinhood's going to get a lot of institutional business too. Crypto as a service is going to be big.
Yeah, one of the things that's most mind-blowing to me for Robinhood is just the total addressable market. Like, they're nowhere near. And like, you're talking about global financial services, let alone just even here. Like people are asking, oh, well, they should add 529 accounts. People are asking for bonds. People are asking for shorting or 4x. Like there's all of these different revenue streams that don't cannibalize with the other products that they currently have. They're not cannibalistic at all. It's just going to bring up the total asset value per customer, let alone bring in more customers if those products are added. So yeah, very, very excited for Robinhood. Palantir is a very, very big unicorn, especially whenever it comes to the valuation.
Somewhat related to Robinhood and the TAM that you were mentioning, Tanner, like every business will tout their TAM and be like, look, it's like infinite. It's bigger than the entire economy of the world times, they'll just really put it out there. But that it really, and I know that you are a TAM investor, but by that, you're not like, okay, whoever has the largest TAM is that's what matters. No, what matters is actually addressable TAM, what you can reach if you have a strategy in place, if you have culture, if you have leadership, if you have vision, if you have execution. If you don't have that, you have something like Block, which is like meh, or, well, I'll show you guys this just very briefly. I don't think we want to spend a lot of time on it, though. I will say, we are covering PayPal earnings, Tanner and I, in the morning, so you guys can join us on the live stream. This is from 2021, their investor day, and they projected things out to 2025, and it was just like night and day difference in quality with what Robinhood had. They mostly talked about what they did, and then had some pretty graphics here and there, and they talked about like the TAM and had no real, like these are supposed to be like TAM things. They had no like real strategy for how to do things other than just like, let's get a lot of users and then hope that we can monetize them later, which it sucked as a strategy at the time, and it turned out worse than probably anyone imagined. It just, this was terrible culture, leadership plan, execution, massive TAM. Robinhood, massive TAM, but they have all of what they need to reach a good chunk of that. And then you look at Schwab and other companies that are growing very well and doing well. They just don't have what Robinhood has.
I think, so I agree with all that. Another similarity between Palantir and Hood is that they focus so much on their culture and getting the best talent. And I think another reason it's really easy to buy the dip on Hood is that you're buying a stock where the company's stock-based compensation is not only going to some of the smartest engineers in the world, but they're getting paid like they're the smartest engineers in the world. Vlad has said many times he'd rather overpay for an engineer than like outsource or get 5 or 6 engineers that can do the job of one person, even if you have to overpay for that one person. So the quality of talent you're investing in both companies is astronomical. And that's just about execution. Like Palantir grew 36% year over year today. A lot of people did not expect 36%. I expected maybe 30%. That extra 6% comes from your people. And can they execute in the final days of that quarter to get those final deals? I think same thing for Hood. And Vlad gave that story to us that election contracts weren't going to launch until 2 weeks out. And then a couple of days before they finally launched it, they had some engineers work overtime, get the product out. That's why it's also very interesting to see if they can match that level of talent to execution. Does that result in more growth, even if the market dynamics maybe not are in Robinhood's favor, right?
Oh, absolutely. And another thing building off of that, we know where the culture is from these, because you've seen it firsthand, Amit, for both of these companies. And I've had interactions, very few in person, but mostly through X. You get a good idea of what the culture is like in Palantir. Robinhood, we've seen, all of us have seen that firsthand, and it's ridiculously amazing. And you can maybe fake that, for a while, with a small group of people, multiple days with 50, 60, 70 employees from all sorts of different, no, that doesn't happen. Plus you see the actual proof in the pudding, like the execution, what they're able to do. So, and that's only possible for us because the level of access that they've given retail, to the point with Alex Karp at the very end of that, every single time he's asked, hey, is there anything you want to say specifically to retail? They also let retail questions go first, which I thought was a nice touch. Same thing with Robinhood, where they're like, they really want retail to be in there. When we were there in New York, we were the retail corner. Well, let's have a question from the retail corner, and really want to get that level of access. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's also very easy to buy the dip on this, is because we've seen that. And even if I hadn't, if I was just in the audience and I was typing, but I'm like, hey, Amit's seen it, Tanner's seen it, and they're like, these companies are like amazing as far as culture. They're building something really special. I would listen to that. That's very important to me.
You really see it from Vlad and the team because one, it's a founder-driven company.
Yeah.
And two, like they're doing the investor day. He's on his phone opening up markets, and he's not looking at Robinhood stock. He's looking at like his stocks, or like he's just in the markets. He loves it, you know? And he's not using Schwab. Obviously, he's using Robinhood. And it's just you know, I think it's passion driven. I think that you know, the team is amazing. Like Roy said, it checks all my boxes, you know, accelerating growth rates, accelerating margins. You know, from a legal standpoint, they're in tailwinds right now, especially in a Trump administration. They have a great culture, founder driven. Every single check mark you could put on this company, it has almost.
Yeah, and I think the people, they really love Vlad at the company. I mean, like we've had a lot of conversations with people, but whether it's his personal assistant or chief of staff or communications director, I mean, they really like they'll go to war for him. And it's not easy to be a CEO and have people actually care that much about you. Now, it helps when they're getting rich off the stock, right? And they want to maintain that momentum. But when the stock was dead for 3 years, a lot of those people are still there. And they were telling us how much it sucked in 2021, watching him go through everything that happened with GameStop. So the fact that they're here today and that they're in execution mode, and we've seen this as well with companies in the past, momentum builds momentum. Mm-hmm. And so all the employees, all the culture in the company, Karp was talking about how cool it is to work at Palantir today because you're inside of the momentum. And once you're in the momentum zone, you it's like that quote, right? I've been a rich man and a poor man, and I pick rich every time. You've been in a company where there's no growth and then there's a lot of growth, and you pick keeping that growth every time because being in a company where there's no growth sucks.
Yeah, man.
In a lot of those companies that are not growing and iterating well, like they're not doing what Palantir and Robinhood are doing. They're not market leaders, and so what they're trying to do is catch up to the leader. And if you don't have the culture in place, if you don't have the product, like you'll never catch up unless, like, for some reason Robinhood's like, you know what, we're good for a year. Let's just stand pat. That doesn't happen with this.
They're not going to do that. But they're not doing
Palantir either. Yeah.
And Palantir either. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so like it's awesome just to be positioned in market leaders. Don't always get it right, especially before the market does, but nice feeling.
Yeah. And days like today, by the way, in a Trump administration, I think we're going to get a lot of days of real uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
Now, personally, and this is not financial advice at all, I'm extremely optimistic over the next 4 years, even as a Canadian, and that should tell you something. But there's going to be a lot of uncertainty between now and the end of these 4 years.
Yeah. He's using executive order a lot more and then tweeting out, things on Truth or whatever. It's like, man, we've seen it. That's fantastic for Hood. It's not fun for, people that are caught up in that and have uncertainty, but
it seems like the uncertainty from Trump is not stopping. This tariff thing was just one example of what we'll see over the next 4 years. But I mean, dude, I kind of feel stupid now because it's like it was so obviously a negotiation tactic, and now less than 24 hours later, it was pretty obvious that he was never really going to go through with this, and he probably won't in the future. If he has more of these moments, regardless of how obvious it seems in hindsight, markets will sell off, right? And then they'll buy and they'll be back up, and then people will trade that volatility. And it seems like Hood, to your point, Tanner, will benefit off that over the next 4 years. And then in general, if you have a pro-growth environment, they should benefit from that along with wealth transfer. So it seems like this stock is set for a multi-year run and becoming much bigger than where they are today.
Yeah, that's the nice thing is we may be wrong about, it going to 80 or even higher this year. But, over 5 years, it's hard to see me buying in the 50s as like, oh, man, I really regret that.
Yeah.
Man, think about the way that they're growing all their current services and the gold attach rates, which are higher. The new cohorts that are coming on are attaching at like a 20+% rate. So the total is going to be higher. They said that they're ramping up sales and marketing. So more customers are coming onto the platform faster. And then all the new revenue lines that we have potentially in 2025 that we didn't before. Like, I mean, all like a crazy amount. You're talking Can we even name them off? I bet there's somewhere like near 10 new revenue lines. This
in 2025.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have index options, futures, event contracts.
Yep. Credit cards. You have stablecoin stuff now with
that's more back end, but yeah.
Well, I don't mean that they're going to be posting all of these things, but you have advisory services coming up. You have stablecoin with the global what is it called, Roy? Global dollar?
USDG. Yeah, global dollar network.
Yeah, USDG that they're partnering with. The advisory services, the crypto custody, institutional clientele. Like there's just so many. Yeah, I don't know. That's all brand new. Like that's crazy in the last 12 months and then going into the next 12 months.
And it's not like their existing products. They're like, we'll just kind of forget about them. No, like even little things like, Sherwood Media, like that has been.
Dude, I really wish we could know how much money they make off that. They have 40 million subscribers on their newsletter.
Oh yeah, man. And like Josh Brown, like he was in a podcast with a few other guys and he called it out. He's like, dude, have you been looking at Sherwood Media? Like they're impressed with what they're doing. Say Technologies is one of those that I think is going to continue to grow very well. It's like one of those genius acquisitions. It just everything's lining up so well.
Yeah. And they continue to just, whenever we're not discussing these, they'll put out new options, simulated return products, better UIs, things that just people didn't even realize that they needed, or they were using other third-party services for those products. And they get rolled into Robinhood, and the overall UI gets a little bit better, And the great thing about financial services, especially in the space that they're in, is equities. Although it's not a done or a finished product, like once you start offering every single product and you get it out in 24/5, you kind of get to, maybe they'll get to 24/7 eventually, but after that, it's like, what other innovation do you want in equity? Start moving on to other things. And they're getting ready for every future product that they need to get into.
I want to show the clip of Josh Brown actually talking about Hood, because that would
this is recently.
Yeah, you didn't see it?
No, I saw it. Sorry. The Sherwood Media comment was a while ago though, right?
Yeah,
that was a while ago. And again, they have 40 million subscribers on that. So I would imagine that plus the website's really good. If people haven't checked it out, Sherwood.news. I mean, they're trying to build like their own modern Bloomberg for Gen Z with charts and graphics and all that stuff. So, I mean, there's a world in which they can find a lot of ways to monetize that, or just use it as an arm for further distribution. Okay, so while I find the clip, let's move on to this topic and then I'll pull up that clip. Singapore. So we got a new job listing in Robinhood, senior product marketing manager in Singapore. Roy, I'll give it to you first. Do you think this launches in Singapore, the brokerage in 2025?
I think it'll be a launch like the UK. That's a soft launch. They won't have all the products there right away, and they'll just kind of build into that, just carefully, slowly over time. I don't know. I do think it'll be faster than the UK. I think that probably each place that they launch, they'll get better and better at what they do. And some of the waiting is regulation. Some of it is also trying to wait and see how those early cohorts are performing. And of course, they want to make sure it goes well too, because this UK launch wasn't the first launch that they did. They had some that were not successful immediately. So, but I think this is coming this year, probably late this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it will come this year as well. I think that's what it said on the investor day, right? Yeah. I think it'll be second half of this year.
They didn't give an exact timeline, to my understanding. I don't know. Maybe I'll check it again, but I think
I'll double check it.
They purposely left that out, and for good reason. I mean, if they can't launch, right, they don't want to give everyone expectations for that. But obviously, I'm sure they want to launch as quick as possible.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it, but I know that if they came to Canada, I wouldn't be jumping at the opportunity to switch. And I think that will probably be similar in a lot of other locations. Like if they went to Brazil, I don't think that they like, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of homegrown solutions and they need to market there for a bit. But the real tech savvy people that are always on the jump with the newest products usually find those homegrown solutions. And there's always a couple in each country, whether that's Nubank in Brazil or Mexico or Wealthsimple here in Canada. If it wasn't for these literal individual names, it would be open season for Robinhood. Like, there's not another name I would want that wouldn't make me jump over to Robinhood immediately. But yeah, I'd need the credit card. I'd need a lot of things to switch now.
Well, I want you to know that you're the reason why Robinhood's not going to Canada.
No, it's not. I might be the reason why it does.
No. Vlad's like, if Tanner's not even going to bother switching, why do we even launch there? So
I didn't tell him that.
Does everyone?
He heard it just now. I'm sure he's watching.
No, don't listen, Vlad.
Does everyone know the story about Tanner's first experience with the Robinhood app?
With are you talking about with Riley?
Yes, with Riley. Do you want to tell that story?
I don't know if there's anything to tell.
Over 2 years?
That's a long time ago. I don't even know if people know Riley Smelly.
Tanner was so obsessed with other companies over Hood at the time that he met an American friend, and the American friend said, "Hey, do you want to look at my Robinhood app on my phone?" And Tanner was like, "Nope, I don't even want to look at it." Because he was obsessed with another company. He's come to the other side to appreciate both companies. But at that time, he's like, I don't even want to look at it because he doesn't have access in Canada. So his Texas friend came up to Toronto, said, "Hey, do you want to play with the app?" Tanner's like, "Nope, I don't even want to
get it out of my face."
And thankfully, things have changed. But yeah.
I remember when, I don't know if it was you or I that were talking to Tanner first about Robinhood, but he was like, no. Well, to Tanner's credit, and this is actually a rare gift, he has the ability to change his mind based on new data. And he's like, okay.
Which is hard. It's hard to do that, especially if you missed the double already. I think the stock went from 8 to 16, but Tanner said, nope, this is a growth story. I'm jumping in.
It's such a gift, and it's so freaking rare. So kudos to you, Tanner.
Thanks, guys. I feel that makes me feel great. But no, I personally think it wasn't that I just changed my mind. The thesis changed, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you could have at least looked at the app, dude.
Yeah,
I didn't like it. You were just like, you could keep that there.
I wasn't just with Riley. We were there were a lot of people around, and I'm socializing, and he's trying to shove Robinhood's app in my face. I was like, can I enjoy my drink? I don't want to see a financial app right now. I'm having a good time. But I miss that guy. He's I don't know where he is.
Well, regardless, we're all part of the Hood train now, and it's exciting, dude. And look, it happens all the time. It happens all the time in terms of just people coming around to a story. And I think it's okay to overpay a little bit for a stock after a run because you have more mental safety. So at $8, if you don't have the peace and mind to go into it, it is what it is. But at 16, if you have the peace and the stability and you understand the growth story, you can still do very well. People often miss out because they think they missed a run, right?
I think people are doing it like crazy right now with NVIDIA. They go, oh, well, I didn't get this thing at 20, so I'm not going to buy it at 113. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, things can go up in price and be more cheap than what they were whenever they were lower, right? Earnings can change how expensive a company was on its multiple.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I felt with Robinhood. Even though I missed it, I didn't feel like I missed it because I was looking at it and I didn't like it. And then later on, I don't know.
I don't think you missed it at all. $8 is no one was really paying attention to it. 16, still no one was paying attention to it. So I think that was the time to jump in.
I had a really good friend in my ear telling me to buy for a long time. So I will say I missed it because you were there every week in the SoFi Weekly telling me that I was missing it. But yeah,